The wind caught me off guard that morning. I was standing on my porch barefoot, a cup of coffee growing cold in my hand. The Georgia air carried that soft chill between night and day. The kind of moment where the world feels half awake. A sudden gust lifted the edge of my robe. And as I reached to catch it, I saw movement. Him, my daughter's husband. He stopped mid-step, realized his eyes locking on mine. For one breath, neither of us moved. It wasn't shock in his face. Not really. It was something heavier. Something that made the silence between us feel dangerous. That moment didn't end when he looked away. It lingered in the air, in my chest, in the way I suddenly couldn't breathe.
My name is Marianne.
I'm 58 years old. Alert learned that quiet can be louder than any storm. I live alone now in the same White House where my husband once promised me forever. He left 2 years ago. Said he needed space. He found that space in someone half my age. I didn't chase him. I just stopped waiting. My daughter married young 8 years ago. She stood in this very yard under a string of lights, smiling like she had the whole world in front of her. Back then, her husband was gentle, full of life. They used to visit every Sunday. Noises from their noise family. Now it's mostly quiet. He still visits, but she doesn't come anymore. He says she's been busy. Work, deadlines, always something. But I can see it in his eyes. The distance, the emptiness of someone holding on to something that's already gone cold. That morning, he tried to play it morning, he said, voice light but unsure. I pulled my robe tighter, pretending nothing had happened. Early, I said, even though I hadn't expected him at all. He smiled nervously. He said my back porch light was out. Thought he'd fix it.
A lie.
I hadn't mentioned it to anyone. Still, I stepped aside. The way he walked careful close. It changed something. Not in the room. In me, he replaced the bulb. We talked about nothing and everything. Weather, work, loneliness. And when he left, the silence he left behind wasn't peaceful. It was full. That night, I caught myself standing in front of the mirror, not studying the lines on my face, gray in my hair, but something else. The look in my eyes. What did he see in me? And worse, why did I want him to? He came again 2 days later. Another excuse. Another lie. This time it was the fence he said he'd noticed it needed fixing. I didn't question it. I let him in anyway. We sat in the kitchen. The clock ticked too loudly. The air felt heavier than usual. Then he asked quietly,
You okay?
It was such a simple question, but it broke something open in me. I'm fine, I said, though we both knew I wasn't. He nodded slowly. Sometimes, he said, I look at her and feel like she's somewhere I can't reach anymore. Marriage does that, I said softly. It turns love into memory before you notice. He smiled faintly, sad and soft. And in that moment, we understood each other too well. When he reached for his mug, his hand brushed mine just for a second. But that was enough. Enough to change everything. He started coming by more often after that. At first, it was small things. The mailbox hinge, the leaky faucet. Then the excuses stopped. He came just because. Sometimes he brought coffee, sometimes flowers, never explanations. We talked about nothing, about everything, about how the days blend together when you're all along, about how silence can feel like both comfort and punishment. Realized something I hadn't felt in years. I didn't want the conversation to end. One evening, as spilled through the kitchen window, he set his coffee cup down and said quietly, I think about you more than who'd. I felt my pulse in my throat. The room went still. Do you think about her when you hear? I asked. He looked away. I tried to. The air between us thickened, the kind of silence that dares you to move. He lifted his hand, hesitated, waiting. I didn't move closer, but I didn't move away either. Sometimes that's where betrayal begins. Not in what you do, but in what you let happen. After that night, nothing felt the same. He started staying longer. His visits stretched from minutes to hours. We sat on the porch in the evenings, watching the light fade, pretending the world outside didn't exist. He'd ask about my garden, about the read, and I read about places I once dreamed of visiting. And I told him stories I hadn't shared with anyone in years. Stories of my first job, of the laughter that used to fill this house, of the way my husband once made me feel seen before he stopped looking altogether. And he listened like every word mattered, like I mattered. There's something dangerous about being seen. After years of feeling invisible, I started noticing him more. The way he'd run a hand through his hair when he was nervous. The way his voice softened when he said my name. The way his presence filled a room that used to feel empty. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was something close enough to burn. One rainy evening, we sat in the kitchen again. The world outside blurry.
Ugri.
He told me about his childhood, about his leaving and leaving, about the promises he swore he'd never break. And somewhere in that story, his voice cracked. I saw the boy he used to be, and the man trying not to repeat old mistakes.
He said,
"Sometimes I think she's already gone. Just forgot to leave." The honesty in his eyes hurt, because I knew exactly what that felt like. When he stood to go that night, the porch light flickered, the same one he'd fixed the first day this all began. "Good night," he said softly. But the way he said it didn't sound like good night. It sounded like a question neither of us could ask. I didn't sleep much after that. I lay awake listening to the rain, thinking about how easily forbidden things start. Not with a kiss, not with a word, but with a moment you don't stop soon enough. I wanted to believe I could control it, that I could hold the line, that I could stay strong. But loneliness has a way of whispering things you want to believe. It tells you it's harmless, that it's just a conversation, that no one needs to know. Until one realize it's already too late. The next morning, I found an envelope on my porch. No name, no note, just a single white daisy inside. I didn't have to wonder who it was from. I held it for a long time, long enough to feel both guilt and something far more dangerous, because I knew what it meant. It wasn't a gift. It was a confession. And when I pressed that flower between the pages of an old book, I realized something I didn't want to admit. I wasn't waiting for him to stop coming. I was waiting for him to come back. Some stories don't begin with choices. They begin with a moment we never meant to notice and can never forget.